Welcome back to KUJH, continuing coverage of the Student Senate election. I'm Thomas Hoppo. Now I'm here with current KU Student Body Vice President Emma Halling to discuss the Student Senate race. Emma, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Good to be here.
We found out about 2 hours ago that the results of the election will not be released until after the Court of Appeals meets tonight. So what do you think of this battle between the Jayhawkers and Grow KU?
It's definitely interesting. I think that the Elections Commission did not want to be the deciding body in this election. They wanted it to go to a popular vote as much as possible. So the fact that they were willing to throw an entire coalition off the ballot means that they thought that the evidence was very, it was very convincing. And so they were able to make that call. I'll be interested to see what the Court of Appeals says, but the Elections Commission would not have put this forth unless they felt very strongly.
So you already know what happened for the Jayhawkers being disqualified for not reporting funds that they use on their campaign.
Correct.
After they got disqualified, how do you think this impacted the election?
I think it made the election more of a black and white issue because previously the coalitions have kind of similar platforms, and so people that I spoke to had a hard time differentiating them, but as soon as one coalition was accused of that level of malfeasance and was thrown off the ballot, it became very clear so that one coalition could differentiate and say, we are the one that is on the ballot and the other one has been kicked off for these reasons.
So the Elections Commissions, they didn't just disqualify a candidate or two candidates, they disqualified an entire coalition.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of anything like this happening before?
I haven't seen it done. I've seen it filed for, but it's really ironic that this just happened because an ongoing debate that we've had in Student Senate this year has been whether coalitions should continue to exist in future elections. A lot of people who are on the Jayhawkers coalition that got disqualified, not all of them, but many of them who currently sit in Senate, opposed the dissolution of coalitions because they said that the right to organize and work together on an election should be afforded to the students and then it was beneficial. I don't think a lot of these people considered that if you willingly associate, you can also be associating with something that's bad, and thus face the consequences of that negatively as well.
So the Jayhawkers are alleging that Grow KU did basically the same thing. What is the difference between both of them?
Yeah, and on its face, that allegation seems very serious, but if you look at the actuality of the charges, they said that they had cookies in an executive meeting. And so basically, if they weren't allowed to have cookies at a closed executive meeting, is there a rule that no one can eat or consume anything while executives are meeting? Because that means that probably half of our student senate is going to starve for a semester. And then the other one involves like a cappuccino machine at Crable, which is really funny because I lived in the scholarship halls for 2 years, and I know that that machine is never functional because they don't put coffee in it, they put mashed potatoes in it. So I personally think that that charge doesn't hold a lot of weight at all.
Okay, to some, a lot of people might think that this is just a small infraction of what they've done, but why does the Elections Commission view this as significant enough to disqualify them?
Yeah, I mean, it's been affectionately termed Burrito Gate, and that kind of minimizes the actuality of the problem, and the fact is that if this is true, and as the Elections Commission ruled, they falsified expense reports. There is a very clear and very hard $1,000 cap on any campaign spending provided in our elections regulations. If they spent up to like $500, $600 on Chipotle, which is more than I pay in rent every month, and didn't report that, that's an absolutely unfair advantage because that food went to campaigning, which went to furthering their chances with the student body. So not only were they gaining a competitive edge in the elections that they should have been afforded, they were falsifying fiscal documents, which if you think about the fact that Student Senate is the body that controls your $24 million in student fees, the Elections Commission wanted to prohibit people who are falsifying financial documents from having that level of power the next year.
Okay, so do you think that their documents weren't holding up to where they asked students to sign documents say that they paid for their Chipotle burrito? Why do you think this didn't hold up?
The timing of the document was very questionable. It was circulated after the charges were filed, from what I'm familiar with. The accuracy of that is also questionable, and I think that's going to come up tonight. I think if I went to a meeting and ate a burrito and then 2 days later somebody was like, hey man, you need to pay for that, it's not the same as me knowing in advance I need to pay someone for food at an event.
When did the charge occur for this?
I don't know exactly when the charge was filed, but the hearing was on Tuesday night.
The hearing for it was on Tuesday night, so you don't know exactly when they were asking these kids to sign these documents?
I don't.
But you know that it was after?
I do know that it was after because that came to light in the hearing on Tuesday night.
Okay, so do you think that all these allegations, these charges, them being disqualified and everything, do you think this affects the election?
Yeah, I think it does. The Jayhawkers Coalition has obviously made it a rallying point, saying that they are being conspired against and they deserve to still be on the ballot. The opposing coalitions have also made it a rallying point, saying you shouldn't vote for the Jayhawkers because they are corrupt. I think it also just leaves a really bad taste in everyone's mouth surrounding Senate because it looks really petty and like people can't be responsible and adhere to rules that they imposed upon themselves.
So not Grow KU, I'm sorry, Jayhawkers are still on the ballot and everything. Do you think that affects voting?
Yeah, I understand why it was done. IT is a ship that moves slowly, and additionally the possibility for an appeal necessitated it, but it's confusing for people to read a headline that says Jayhawkers thrown off the ballot and then go to vote and see them on there, and I don't know if they would be able to make those connections if they aren't as intimately familiar with Student Senate as I am.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit now. And you were in this position a year ago, awaiting the results of an election. What do you think are going through the thoughts of these candidates, especially this election now, where things took a twist and turn?
They are probably exhausted and stressed out and freaking out about the fact that the results won't be released until after 11. That's a lot of time to spend not knowing. And really, we could not have certified results for 2 weeks. To be perfectly honest, the hearing is supposed to convene at 11. They may or may not have reached a decision at that point. The results aren't certified by the Elections Commission until 48 hours after the election. And if the decision is appealed all the way to the University Judicial Board, that could be 2-3 weeks out.
So you're saying that it could be 2 or 3 weeks out, but the Elections Commission said that the results could be up to 5 days. Do you not think that's true?
The results could be out, but whether or not people who got numerical votes should be allowed to keep those votes and be kept on the ballot as an option will be the decision.
Okay. So Grow KU's ticket of Miranda Wagner and Morgan Saeed could possibly be the first all-female president and vice president positions in KU history. How do you feel about this?
I think that's really impressive and something that is long overdue. We've seen plenty of tickets with 2 men. I think it's about time we saw one with 2 women. I also think that Student Senate is a body in which women really excel because college-age women tend to be much more organized than college-age men, and so it makes sense to me that that would happen.
Okay, well, it's going to be interesting to see how this appeal is going to turn out. Are you going to be there yourself?
Probably not. It's going to go until 11 o'clock. I try to stay out of the office past 10.
All right, well, thanks, Emma, for joining us. I appreciate it. Emma Halling for KU's Student Body Vice President. We'll be back shortly with Grow KU's presidential candidate, Morgan Saeed. Please stay with us.